Hey, this is Harts. I'm in LA at the moment, hanging out with Rob at Front Row Live.
I'm excited for you. I was listening to the record on the way here, and I was listening to it earlier this week, and it just sounds so full. Like it blows my mind that it's just one person creating this whole like album.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a compliment. I kind of take inspiration from people like Stevie Wonder and Prince and stuff that were able to do that in the 70s and the 80s. And, you know, I wanted to bring back that kind of musicianship in, you know, pop music and rock music and stuff like that. And, you know, I'd spent a lot of time learning a lot of instruments and things like that to be able to do that. Right. So, yeah, I'm proud of it.
There's a UK artist that I met last year. I think he's like 18, 19 years old. His name's Jacob Collier. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's almost similar to what you do, like as far as him being the only member of his project, and he like creates everything from scratch in his bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. With the aid of technology and things like that these days, you know, you can really do that and create like a really big sound, as you said, a full sound by yourself. Yeah, there's artists out there that are really killing it, and he's definitely one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know in the past, when you first dabbled into music, you were in a couple bands.
Yeah.
And then you went on to doing your solo thing. How did that transition really happen for you? Why did you want to go and do this all on your own? Because this is not, I mean, it's hard enough to record an album with a band. It's even harder to do it all on your own.
I think it was a natural kind of thing that happened. I didn't make the decision to be a solo artist. I think I was just writing material and I was recording, and I was learning a lot about production at that time and figuring out how to record myself and things like that to help me in bands. And I ended up just writing a whole bunch of material and recording it and I guess playing all the instruments and things like that just as an experiment to see if I could do it and what it would sound like. From there, it kind of developed on its own, and I put some stuff online, and, you know, I got, you know, attention from that, and it kind of developed there. But I never made a decision that I was going to be a solo artist from now on.
Just naturally happened for you.
Yeah, and as it was happening, I kind of just rolled with it, and I was like, well, yeah, I actually enjoy it because there's, you know, have to organize, you know, all your band members for Sunday rehearsal. You don't have to organize this and this. It's kind of all on you. And I liked, as I said earlier, with you know, a lot of my inspirations and influences, that they were able to do that, and I like that. You know, I could kind of bring back that mentality to music and try and really show off musicianship, but still write, you know, real catchy pop songs as well. So I think all that was in my head while I was doing it, but I never really made the decision one day to say, hey, I'm going to be a solo artist. Yeah.
You initially started in the drums, and then now you're dabbling in everything. But the transition from drums to being a lead singer, or a vocalist in general, like, was that difficult for you? Was that a difficult task to get into? Yeah,
definitely. Because when you're on the drums, when I was playing shows in like pubs and things like that, you were kind of hidden, hidden from the spotlight in a way. So I never sang on, I never really did anything like that. And when I started writing my own material, I had to have, you know, a way to put my ideas down. So I was doing the singing, I was doing all the vocalizing and things like that. And I fully intended at one stage to get somebody else to sing all the songs and make it like some sort of collaboration or something like that.
Right.
But as I was showing people and showing some industry people and stuff like that, and everyone was real happy with my voice. They thought it sounded really cool on the record, and they thought, like, you know, it worked for what I was doing. So that was another decision why I just kind of kept going with whatever was thrown at me, and
all the signs were just saying stay by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. It kind of just lined up like that, and that's kind of the way it happened. But in terms of performing live, I definitely had to get used to the fact that I was going to be the front man and I was going to be the center of attention. I did play in a band after that where I was like the primary songwriter, and I was playing guitar and singing. So that kind of helped me get over the nervousness of being the one where everybody's watching you, as opposed to being hidden on the drums. I think after a few years, I just got used to it, and I kind of just felt more natural in that.
Your daily, it's just your daily thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Now, what has been how do you feel your progress has been from the initial demo of Back to the Shore to the new album now? Like, how drastic has that change been?
You've done your research.
I try and do my research.
Yeah. It's been a huge change because that came out in 2010.
Yeah.
So
that was your first release, right?
Yeah. That was a long time ago, and I was pretty much just a kid back then. But looking back now, I think I've developed so much more as a songwriter. As a producer, definitely my sound has gotten way more unique in that, like, I don't think there's anybody out there that sounds like what I'm putting out on a record.
Right.
It's definitely more unique, and I'm definitely a better songwriter because of all the years that I've spent, you know, developing my craft and honing what I have. I'm a better musician for it as well. Like, just playing live for that amount of time, you learn how to, you know, handle crowds. You learn how to be a showman in a way, and you learn what your strengths are and how to play to your strengths. So I think as a person and as an artist, I've definitely grown since then, and I think I'm continuing to grow as I learn more about, you know, music and coming out to America for the first time to do my real first tour.
And I can't believe it's the first time. You've been in the industry for quite some time already.
Yeah, for sure. I've been like on a few trips to America before, but I've never done proper, like, my own shows and touring and things like that. So this is the first one, and I have been around for a long time, but it kind of that's the state of it at the moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
It takes a long time, and you really have to, you know, start from the ground zero and work your way up, kind of thing. So I think now it feels like a good time, and it's good to be in the country.
Yeah. Did you even consider Daydreamers to be like a U.S. debut as well?
I did, yeah, but it's just hard to get attention, like, when you're kind of starting out. So there was a lot of releases that kind of they'll get their attention in time. Right. Like, when people, you know, discover whatever they discover, they can go back and see, like, what a huge back catalog.
That's actually like what really happened. I mean, that's what happened to me, because I was listening to the link for the album, but then I was like, I wonder if he has anything on Spotify. So I go on Spotify, and sure enough, Daydreamers is on there.
Yeah.
And that record's just another, like, great record as well. And that's like your first one. Yeah,
that was the first record. Yeah. I think that's really good. That got a lot of positive feedback in Australia.
Yeah.
It kind of did okay in the UK as well. It did I think a couple of singles got played on, like, BBC Six and some good radio stations, stuff like that. We never really had the chance to take it over to America, but I'm happy that this record is the one that we're really promoting and getting behind here, because, as I said, once people discover me, they can go back and see that, you know, there's a consistent quality level with my stuff. So yeah.
Now, from that first album to this one right now, you maintained everything, doing it on your own.
Yeah.
An exception to that first demo, Back to Shore, Lars from Mars Volta actually remixed it, or mixed it, right? Yeah. Was that the first and only time that anybody has ever been in the studio or worked on any of your music?
Yeah, that's the only time. Back then, I was still learning a lot about the production side of things, and I wasn't quite ready to do the mixing role. Yeah. Like, my mixes and stuff like that, they sounded good and they sounded like I mixed it, but I think we could have done better. That's why we reached out to Lars, or the record label helped out and stuff like that to find someone to give it a way better mix and that quality kind of shine. But then after that, as I was learning more about production, things like that, I kind of took over that role and felt comfortable in the role of, you know, mixing it as well as recording it and producing it.
Now, how is it that you're on a label and you're still, I mean, technically you're a new artist, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're still able to have so much, like, you're in control of everything. Like, there's no one else stepping in to help you out. Like, how is it that you were able to accomplish that?
I think it's a hard question, but I think that the quality of music that I was putting together and my arrangements and things like that kind of solidified my artistic vision. And I think the people that we work with, whether it's a US label or Australian label and stuff like that, they understand that. Yeah. And they kind of don't really interfere or get in the way with that sort of thing. I always get suggestions, and I'm open to suggestions for things like that, particularly because I don't really understand fully radio and things like that, like some people do. And, you know, some of my songs that I think radio singles are like 5 minutes and things like that, that just won't work. So I do take feedback in that kind of thing. But I think I've been, as I said, I've been developing and writing for such a long time that I've kind of reached a stage where, you know, I'm happy with the way I'm doing things, and the record labels and stuff that are working with me are happy with that as well. And they gave me, you know, the deals that we wanted, and we're working together to really make this happen.
Now let's talk about the debut album. Drops on my birthday, actually, July 21st.
Happy birthday!
So
next Friday?
That's next Friday. So this is obviously your U.S. debut, but what was so different this time around when you came in to create the album, and what was maybe like the most difficult instrument to record on this album?
The most difficult thing for me is kind of like, as I was talking about the early days, is still a lot of the production side, and more the kind of figuring out how to get the sound that I want out of the thing, because I'm still kind of recording everything in my house, like in a kind of a bedroom setup kind of thing, and it just works for me. But a lot of the time I'm, you know, aiming for something sonically or something that I'm hearing in my head, and I'm trying to tweak, you know, things to get to that. Right. That's the hardest part for me. Writing the songs and playing the instruments and stuff isn't as hard as the production side for me. But the hardest instrument is definitely probably keyboards, because I'm not really that good at it. I'm good with chords and figuring out chords and things like that, but lines, like, because I play all the horns and stuff like that, like on the keyboard and stuff like that. So playing all those parts is definitely harder than playing the guitar or things like that I'm more used to doing. So yeah, it'd probably be that. Man,
that's so much. I can only imagine like what your parents would be like thinking when you're in the house, like, working on new material. It must be loud. Or did you actually like set up your studio back there where it's like nothing comes out as far as sound goes?
Nah, it's just like a standard bedroom, and you can hear it. But the thing is, my parents like work during the days, so I had the days to record and do things. And then when I need to keep the noise down, I just working on headphones and stuff like that. And a lot of people do that these days, and it's usually fine. When you get to the mastering stage, you can really, you know, tweak all those things and the mistakes you make sometimes monitoring through headphones and recording that way. Right. So yeah.
So Smoke, Fire, Hope, Desire. Who are you in this album? What can the fans expect on this record?
I think I've never really changed who I am. I think I've definitely always been a songwriter, producer, and guitarist at heart, and that's kind of been the real core of everything I've ever done musically. On this album, I definitely push the boundaries on what I thought I could do in terms of the writing and production style. Okay. I definitely am proud of a lot of the changes, and like chord changes, and a lot of the string lines and orchestra style stuff that I put on this record, and all the things that I wrote. I got this songbook made up with because I can't read music, but I got the songbook made up for people that want to learn the songs. And I was just reading the chords, and everything was so complex and things like that. And I was really proud of the fact that like I was just working off my head or working off my ear to create that sort of stuff. So I think there's a lot of guitar, there's a lot of funky rhythms, a lot of rock and roll, but there's also a lot of more softer orchestral stuff blended into that, and there's a lot of jazz as well blended into that, but it's still kind of, you know, kept that same kind of groove and funky feel and catchiness. And I think that's what I've been creating since the start, and I think I'm only just getting better at it. And with this album, I've definitely reached, you know, that level where I'm really happy with this record, and I'm excited for the future actually as well after this record, because I'm always constantly writing things like that, and I'm always feeling like I'm stepping up my game and developing that way. So I think this album is a really good, strong indication of where I am as an artist right now. I think it definitely speaks to a lot of troubles, I guess, in the world at the moment, particularly in the Western society, even in America and things like that. There's a lot of lyrical content like that. I think,
is that hard for you, that kind of lyrical content?
Not really. I think it just comes as it comes. Like if I wanted to say something within a song, it's easier for me to put it into a lyric of a song than to just send out a tweet or something like that. You know, it's better and it's more longer lasting. So there's a lot of lyrical messages that I put into the material that speaks to a lot of things that's going on in the world, particularly in America as well. So I'm hoping that people, you know, resonate with that as well as the, you know, the music, and really get behind the release of this album.
Now, as you mentioned, the orchestra that you added to this album, how did you go about creating that for the record?
So I basically started with like whatever the chord progression for the song was, and then figured out inversions of that, which is basically different notes, but it's still the same chord. Figured out ways of doing that, and then splitting the instruments into either strings, cellos, trumpets, brass, things like that, orchestral instruments, and then working out which one plays whatever note or which one plays whatever line at the same time. Don't know if that's the real way to do it, but that's the way I did it on the record, and that's the way I kind of separated it and tried to make it as orchestral as it could be.
Yeah.
I'm not a trained musician, and I don't really know a lot of theory and things like that, so a lot of it was working just off what was in my head and trying to get that out into the song.
I was still blown away. Like I mentioned earlier, the record just sounds full. It sounds complete. How do you even plan that out? Like when you're gonna go and track, what was it, 14 songs that were on the record?
Yeah, there's 14. I think 2 or 3 of them are interludes, including an intro or something like that. But
which the intro, by the way, I thought you were gonna go on into like a hip hop, like rap style like track, because there was the piano. I think it was the intro. There was a piano that just reminded me of like old school hip hop, like when, you know, like I was waiting for you to go ahead and just like spit some verses or something.
Yeah, man, all that stuff is coming, you know, maybe on the next record and stuff like that. But it's definitely, you can see, as you listen to my music through the time, you can definitely see the progression and where it's heading. But yeah, I'm very much into hip hop. I'm very much into so many different styles of music, and it's just figuring out a way to make that still myself and not tread on anybody else's ground with that sort of stuff. And you know, particularly with hip hop, it's really easy to fall into the trap of copying and mimicking certain sounds and things like that. So I try to figure out a way to keep it, you know, still Harts and still myself, but as you said, full, and make it like a full kind of dynamic record and make the songs, you know, as powerful and strong as they needed to be. But going back to your question, I didn't plan that. I didn't really think, okay, how am I going to make this one sound more full or this one sound more full? I think the song dictates what it needs. Like some stuff is real stripped back in a way, like Fear in Me, for example, which is really sparse, but it's a rock song, but when it gets to those big heavy choruses, it's just bass, drums and guitar, just real powerful kind of rock riffs. But some of the stuff is way more heavily produced, like Realize, Peculiar, some of the singles. I think the song just dictates the way it needs to go and the way you need to produce it. And sometimes you can fight that, and I definitely did with a lot of material that didn't make the album. But sometimes you try to force something in a specific way and it just ends up sounding a bit awkward. So this one was more, I just kind of flowed with the way that I think the song was supposed to sound and the way that it was almost telling me how it was supposed to sound. So that's the way it works for me.
If you ever decide to do some collaborations with other artists, I know this is going to be pretty random, but I pictured this specific artist while listening to your record, and I think it would be an incredible collaboration. Are you familiar with Tech Nine?
No, I'm not.
He's a hip hop artist, but he loves working with rock artists. Like he's worked with Linkin Park, he's worked with Metallica, I think he's worked with Slipknot, but it's like he loves that rock hip hop kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think it would be pretty sick to do a collaboration with him, with your music and then like his verses.
Yeah, definitely. I'm open to collaborations and things like that. I think for me, it's just finding the right people, as you said, that will work with that and not doing it just for the sake of doing a collab, because you know, that happens a lot in this industry for just pure self-promotion. Yeah, but you know, if it's an artistic thing and it works, and you know, we can, I guess, make something unique out of it, or make something that fits both people, then definitely, yeah, I'm open to that. But I'll check that. Is it a guy? One guy?
Yeah, it's a guy. Tech Nine.
Yeah, Tech Nine.
Super sick dude.
Yeah, cool. I'll check it out.
Now, on the the single right now, Peculiar, the music video, your guitar is painted. Yeah. Is that something that is specific to the video, or is that something that you do to your guitars? And if so, is there a meaning behind it?
That guitar has been with me for the last, I think, 4 years now. So one of my friends painted that one, actually. Painted it back in 2013 or something like that. But that guitar's been with me every single gig and every single thing I've done since then. So that's like my main kind of guitar. Yeah. But I just got a new red one that I painted myself, and that one's on this tour that we're doing now. There's no real significance behind it. I just like decorating things. I like I like that, you know, the way they look when they're painted and decorated, and I think maybe just guitars that are just straight out of the shop are a bit boring.
Right.
So that's why that's why I just
you gotta put some life into it.
yeah, just decorating and things like that. There's no real significance or meaning.
Yeah.
I play, you know, not the most expensive guitars in the world, actually more the cheapest guitars.
Yeah.
Not for any reason. That's just kind of what works for me, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about your experience with Paisley Park Studios. What was that like, and what did you get out of those sessions?
So I was invited to go to Paisley Park by Prince, who wanted to meet me, and he wanted to jam with me and do some stuff. It was amazing. When I got there, there was all these musicians lined up, and they were doing, you know, setting up and things like that, and they started playing a song that sounded really familiar to me, and I'm like, wait a second, what's happening right now? And I just kind of zoned out for a second, but they started playing one of my singles off the last album called Lovers in Bloom. Okay. And so Prince had invited all these session players to come in and learn my material as a band to play with while I was there. Yeah. So the whole purpose of being there was Prince wanted to see what I was like as a musician, as a person, and offer any sort of advice and help that he could to make me get to the next stage.
He was basically wanting to be your mentor.
He definitely was. He helped me a lot behind the scenes. He helped me a lot with just tips on songwriting, tips on just being an artist, tips on jamming. There's a lot of times he took the guitar off me while we were doing like freestyle stuff. And he's like, you know, if you do this, or this inversions, and teaching me stuff. And he's like, do that over the top of that or something like that. And then I'd do that, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I see. So he gave me a lot of hands-on musical wisdom, I would put it that way. He took me into the studio one day, and he was showing me stuff he recorded that ended up being one of his last albums, the Artificial Age album. So he was showing me all the stuff he was doing at the time, and he was asking me like, what do you think of this, and like, what do you think of that? And I tried to give like my best like opinion on things. I tried to give advice to him and stuff, and he was really appreciative. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, thanks for that stuff. So it was just, he just invited me there to be a fly on the wall while he was working and doing things, because he saw a real potential in me, and he wanted to help develop that and help me get to the next stage. And I think he saw that I was a bit confused and struggling with the music industry at that point, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And so he just wanted to give advice on how he handled that and how he got around a lot of those challenges. So he helped me in a lot of ways. And my experience at Paisley Park was just, it was almost like going to school every day, or like going to a university. It was going to a university every day, because every day there's a different lesson that needs to be taught. And yeah, it was just a huge learning experience for me.
That's amazing, dude. That's incredible. Not a lot of people can say stuff like that where an artist actually reached out to them for that. So that's pretty cool.
I know, it blows my mind. Like the more time goes on, the more I realize how big of a deal that was. Because at the time I was like, I tried. Maybe it was me forcing myself to believe it wasn't a big deal, so I didn't overreact, or like hype it up in my head and get too nervous and something like that. So it felt completely normal at the time, and even when I got back, and then as the years go on, I'm like thinking, that is not normal what happened. Like that is a sheer divine intervention, something like that happens in a life.
And if you were ever wondering if you're in the right place in life, I mean, that should guarantee it for you.
Yeah, and I was, and I think he could sense that, because we originally had a phone call and first, and he kind of asked me what I was doing, why I was doing what I was doing, and things like, because he saw like a lot of YouTube videos of me playing by myself, like in a studio and stuff, and he's like, oh, do you have a band? Why don't you have a band? Why don't you do this and things like that? I think he felt like I was just struggling at the time, and he just wanted to help. That's pretty much it.
That's amazing, dude. Yeah. Congratulations with all that. And I can't wait for the audience to hear this debut album. Debut for the States. And I mean, like we mentioned earlier, that is going to open more doors for you. Once they hear that, they're obviously going to go back to the previous material. Yeah. But for those fans that have never heard of you yet, why do you think they should go ahead and check you out? What makes you different?
That's a hard question, because I'm a classic underseller of myself. But I think if they like a lot of the traditional aspects of music, like the, I guess, quote unquote, musicianship and real musicianship and things like that, like I think they'll definitely like what I do. If they like funk music, if they like rock and roll, but also really catchy pop kind of music as well, I think they'll definitely like this album. I think if they're looking for something that's definitely not the norm right now, they'll like this album. It's something that's a bit out of the box in terms of what's popular at the moment. Right. And if they like guitar music, they'll definitely like this album. That's probably the best way I can put it. I can't say that it's, it's the best album you're going to listen to or something like that.
But you never know.
But you never know.
You never know. That's why you should go ahead and check it out. It drops July 21st, and it's called?
It's called Smoke, Fire, Hope, Desire.